a disallowed goal, a foul on Salah that should have been a penalty, and in the end a late-night winner of Enzo Fernandez. To one half of the planet, that goal was a miracle. To the other half, it was a receipt. Because less than 24 hours later, 50 members of the European Parliament signed a letter demanding an investigation into the man who runs world football. Not over that goal, over a pattern. A pattern that, depending on who you ask, either proves nothing or proves everything. This is the story of how the world champions became the most hated team on earth. December 18th, 2022, Lusail Stadium. Argentina and France play out what a lot of people still call the greatest World Cup final ever staged. 3 apiece after extra time. Messi scores twice. Mbappe answers with a hat-trick. Then penalties. Then history. Argentina win their 3rd star. Messi lifts the one trophy that had spent his entire career mocking him. For most of the football world, that was the story. The perfect ending. The gods finally settling an old debt. But not everyone saw a fairy tale. Some people saw a crime scene. The first accusations came, almost comically, from a rivalry that had nothing to do with France. Ronaldo's fans. Because the same trophy Ronaldo once called the dream of his life had just been won by the man he spent 15 years measuring himself against. Awkward, really, given how quickly that dream got downgraded to, and this is a real quote in spirit, just 7 games. Even Ronaldo's own sister Katia Aveiro went public, branding it the worst and most rigged World Cup of all time. She was heartbroken that Portugal had been dumped out by Morocco in the quarters while Ronaldo watched from the bench. Understandable as grief, less convincing as evidence. She did, to her credit, congratulate Argentina and praise Mbappe. Small mercies. Then came the pundits. Former Nigeria international Julius Agbonlahor declared the whole tournament rigged for Messi. His smoking gun was the penalty in the final, the one where Dembele caught Di Maria. Agbonlahor swore there was no contact, and that the video assistant referee should have wiped it off the board. The replays showed there was contact, but by then the seed was already in the soil. And here is the uncomfortable part. Some of that soil was real. Argentina were awarded 4 penalties across that tournament before the final even started.
Huge thanks to our sponsor, OK Jersey. If you're looking to add high-quality kits to your collection, from the latest 2026 season to iconic retros, they've got you covered starting at just £15. Please use my promo code MAUS to get an 8% discount.
4. For a lot of neutrals, that number alone raised an eyebrow. Nobody could remember so many spot kicks orbiting one man in a single competition. So 2 things were true at once. The penalties were, on review, mostly legitimate. Dembele hit Di Maria's foot. Szczesny took down Julian Alvarez. Dumfries wiped out Acuna in the box. All penalties. And yet the sheer volume of them gave the suspicion something to chew on. Then there was the other column, the part the conspiracy quietly skipped. Argentina lost their opening match to Saudi Arabia, with roughly 4 goals ruled out for the thinnest offside margins. If a shadowy hand was scripting this tournament for Messi, that hand apparently slept through game 1. In the final itself, the referee gave France 2 penalties. Both were converted by Mbappe. If the fix was in, it was the most generous fix in history, aimed at the team that was supposed to lose. And when the Netherlands clawed back a 2-goal deficit in the quarter-final, their equaliser landed in the 101st minute. If the referee's only job was to protect Argentina, blowing the whistle a minute early was the easiest crime he never committed. One tweet at the time even claimed this World Cup was more fixed than 1978. Bold, considering people were still watching VAR review every single foul in the background, most of which never made it to the broadcast because there was nothing to see. None of it settled anything. It never does. By the time the confetti was swept off the Lusail pitch, 2 versions of the same night existed side by side. One where Messi earned it through blood and penalties and a shootout. One where the trophy arrived gift-wrapped with a bow on top. Fans picked whichever version matched what they already wanted to believe. Then they went quiet. For about 3.5 years, the seed just sat there, waiting for water. And here's what the seed slowly grew into: a perfect, self-sealing trap for anyone who plays Argentina. Beat them, and you get to say you toppled the world champions. Lose to them, and you get to call them corrupt. Either way, you walk away a winner, and you never once have to take accountability for what actually happened on the grass. That's not analysis, that's insurance. Water arrived in June of 2026. The 2026 World Cup came to the United States, and Argentina came back as champions, with a target already stitched onto their backs. They were still very good. Messi, almost 40, was still bending games to his will, and every single time he did, the old whisper got a little louder. It properly reignited against Algeria. Argentina won 3-0, comfortable. Messi scored a hat-trick, and almost nobody wanted to talk about the hat-trick. Around the half-hour mark, Messi slid in and caught Algerian defender Issa Mandi on the lower leg. The Algerian Football Federation lodged an official complaint with FIFA, arguing Messi should have walked and that the officials were rolling out the red carpet for the sport's biggest name. The replay was less dramatic than the outrage. The tackle was reckless. It was a yellow card, but it was made at low speed. The studs weren't launched, and as Mandi stepped forward, his own leg dropped into the path of Messi's boot. Ugly at full speed, tame in slow motion, a reckless tackle is a caution. A red card needs excessive force or genuine danger. And because VAR is not allowed to upgrade a missed yellow into a red, the decision stood. That is the rule. It has always been the rule. Here's the detail the outrage skipped. In that same tournament, other stars were getting away with worse. One defender left his studs in an opponent's calf until it bled and saw nothing. Achraf Hakimi stepped on Vinicius Jr.'s ankle, and it wasn't even given as a foul. Somehow, only Messi's challenge became proof of a global conspiracy. Then came Austria. Argentina ground out a 2-0 win and booked their place in the knockouts. And again, the result was not the headline. The build-up to Messi's opening goal was. Austria's manager Ralf Rangnick was furious, insisting Mac Allister had fouled Schlager in the seconds before the goal. On replay, Mac Allister didn't push, trip or lunge. Two players went for the same ball, and the Argentine used his body to shield it. Under the laws of the game, that's just strength. The referee had a clear, unobstructed view, saw nothing wrong, and VAR had no reason to intervene. Facts, as one commentator put it, don't much care about your feelings. But feelings were selling better than facts all tournament. By the time Argentina met Cape Verde, the complaints had become their own little genre. 3 of them, to be exact. A delayed whistle after a foul on Messi. A quick free kick restart before the goalkeeper had set his wall. And only 3 minutes of added time at the end of extra time. Every single one was textbook. The delayed whistle was the advantage rule, the referee waiting to see if Argentina could play on before pulling it back. The quick free kick was legal because the whistle had already gone and the keeper simply chose to keep fussing with his wall instead of defending his goal. And the 3 minutes of stoppage time had actually elapsed when the final whistle blew. A lot of the people screaming loudest about that quick free kick were, gently put, watching high-level football for what looked like the very first time. One fan online raged about Messi's quick free kick, then got caught praising his own favourite player for taking a quick corner a few tweets earlier. Consistency was never really the point. By this point, following the World Cup on social media felt less like watching football and more like watching election coverage. Every incident got clipped a certain way, framed a certain way, and repeated until people stopped questioning it and just filed it under fact. Accounts that had never posted about football in their lives were suddenly experts on video assistant referee protocol, and only ever when Argentina were on screen. The strangest part was who joined in. People who had spent years praising Messi were now calling him corrupt. And meanwhile, elsewhere in the same tournament, One player scissor-kicked an opponent and it never even reached a video assistant referee review. Nobody clipped that one. It didn't have the right name attached. But none of these was the match that broke the internet. That one was still coming. And it was coming in Atlanta. July 7th, 2026. The round of 16. Argentina against Egypt. On paper, a formality. In reality, the most disputed 90 minutes of the entire tournament. Egypt did not read the script. 15 minutes in, Yasser Ibrahim rose completely unmarked and powered a header past the Argentine keeper. 1-0 to the underdogs. The champions looked rattled, nothing like the machine that had lifted the trophy 4 years earlier. Then Argentina were handed a lifeline, a first-half penalty. The stage set for Messi to level it and restore the natural order of things. Instead, goalkeeper Mustafa Shair guessed right and saved it. Messi's second missed penalty of the tournament. The stadium fell into a stunned, disbelieving silence. Remember that miss. It matters later. In the 67th minute, Mustafa Zico doubled the lead. 2-0. An all-time World Cup upset was 20-odd minutes away, and an entire continent leaned forward. Africa was on the edge of one of its greatest nights in the sport. And then the final quarter of the match happened. This is where the two stories split forever and never rejoin. Version 1. Argentina, world champions, simply refused to die. They threw everything forward, forced the errors and staged one of the great comebacks. Enzo Fernandez buried the winner deep in stoppage time. 3-2. Survival through sheer will. Version 2. The invisible machinery of world football switched on to protect its most valuable asset. And it did not switch off until the right team had won. Both sides point to the same three moments. They just see completely different things when they look at them. The first. In the 58th minute, Egypt thought they had a third goal. VAR ruled it out. The review found that right at the start of the move, Marwan Attia had tugged Lautaro Martinez's shirt and stepped on his foot to win the ball. Because Egypt never lost possession after that, the whole attack counted as one continuous phase, and that phase began with a foul. To Argentina's defenders, that is exactly what VAR exists to catch. A soft call, sure, but a legal one. To Egypt, it was a goal stolen by a microscope that only ever seems to zoom in on the wrong team at the wrong time. The second. Late on, Mac Allister grabbed Hamdi Fati's shirt inside the box at a corner. Egypt screamed for a penalty. It was waved away. The defence is simple. Give that and you give a penalty at every corner in football, because every corner is a wrestling match dressed up as a set piece. The prosecution is just as simple. Rules should apply to everyone, and somehow they kept applying in Argentina's favour. The third. Stoppage time turned into a small eternity. The clock stretched. Rhythms broke. And in that stretched, chaotic window, the referee showed 5 yellow cards to Egyptian players, the goalkeeper included, as they raged at what they were convinced was a scripted execution. By the time Enzo scored, the Egyptians were spent, furious, and certain they had been robbed in broad daylight. There was one more detail almost nobody mentioned. When Zico scored Egypt's second, he ripped his shirt off to celebrate. By the letter of the law, that's an automatic yellow card, even if the goal is later chalked off. He never got it, and nobody complained, because that particular missed call didn't fit the story anyone wanted to tell. After the whistle, one Egyptian voice summed up the mood for millions. This was clearly a fixed game. Everyone saw it. If FIFA wanted Argentina to win, why make us come and play at all? The Egyptian bench matched the mood. In the chaos, their coach ended up in a confrontation with a photographer on the pitch and was reportedly detained over it. At another point, he threw up the crossed arms gesture, the signal a player makes to tell the referee to stop the game because racism has occurred. Nothing came of it, and you could tell how seriously to take it by watching his own staff, who were mostly busy telling him to calm down. Whether that was a man defending his players or a man losing the plot in real time, you can decide for yourself. It was raw, it was human, and it was about to detonate somewhere much bigger than a football pitch. Less than 24 hours after Enzo's winner, the fallout left the sport entirely and walked straight into a parliament. July 8th, 2026. 50 members of the European Parliament, representing 13 different nations, went public with a coordinated demand. They wanted an immediate, sweeping investigation into FIFA President Gianni Infantino. They sent an official letter to the football associations of all 27 European Union member states, calling for a united front. Their ask was blunt: strip Infantino of his administrative immunity and let the Ethics Committee investigate his conduct. This was not a mob of angry fans. This was a legal maneuver from lawmakers arguing that the head of world football had been quietly dismantling his own organisation's rules on neutrality, transparency and integrity. And the Atlanta match was only the spark. The fuel had been stacking up for months. Rewind to the winter of 2025 and the World Cup draw at the Kennedy Center in Washington. There, bypassing the usual FIFA Council process, Infantino unveiled a brand new award, the FIFA Peace Prize. Its very first recipient was the president of a host nation, Donald Trump. The image of the FIFA president handing a gold-plated award to the political leader of a co-hosting country, while Mexico and Canada looked on, did not land quietly. The human rights group Fair Square filed a formal ethics complaint, pointing at the FIFA rule that forbids officials from using their position to endorse political figures. At the time, only Norway's federation, led by Lise Klaveness, had the nerve to back the complaint. By the summer of 2026, 50 European lawmakers had adopted Fair Square's argument almost word for word. Then it got closer to the pitch. It was reported that Trump had personally contacted Infantino to request a review and suspension of an automatic one-match ban given to United States striker Folarin Balogun after a red card. A sitting head of state, leaning on the disciplinary process of a live World Cup. And FIFA reportedly took the call. To the European lawmakers, that was the whole thesis in miniature. Outside political pressure bending the rules of the competition in real time. The complaints went further, into money. The lawmakers pointed at the multi-billion-dollar sponsorship tie-up with Saudi Aramco, the uncontested awarding of the 2034 World Cup to Saudi Arabia. Line up the state money, the political theatre in Washington, and the refereeing patterns that kept the marquee teams alive. And the Parliament argued, you stopped looking at a sport and started looking at a product. There was history here too, not since 2015, when the same Parliament demanded Sepp Blatter resign in the middle of the FIFA Gate corruption scandal, had this many politicians lined up against a sitting FIFA president. The heart of the complaint was almost philosophical. The Parliament argued that international football had drifted away from being a pure meritocracy and toward being a curated entertainment product, one where commercial convenience quietly outranks sporting fairness. In that reading, the late whistles and the microscopic VAR reviews are not the crime, they are the symptom. Whether you buy that or dismiss it as political posturing aimed at a wildly successful tournament is again entirely up to you. And across Africa, the mood was pure fury. Egyptian officials held emergency sessions. A belief hardened across the continent that African nations were being quietly shoved aside so that the global superstars could stay in the tournament as long as possible, for the ratings, the ticket sales, and the sponsors. Meanwhile, in Zurich, the man himself went quiet. Infantino, usually the first to hold a combative press conference, simply vanished from view. FIFA's usual weapon, threatening to suspend any national association whose government interferes in football, was useless here. You cannot threaten to expel half of Western Europe. That is not a threat. That is a bluff, and everyone at the table knows it. If Western Europe's biggest federations formally lined up behind Norway in the parliament, it would trigger a civil war inside the sport that would swallow whatever football was left to play. UEFA on one side, Zurich on the other, and a live tournament caught in the crossfire. And that left fans with a genuinely uncomfortable question. We were watching some of the best football in living memory. Impossible comebacks, 93rd minute winners, the full emotional range of the game. But can you really enjoy a stoppage time miracle when the governing body behind it is facing a historic challenge to its integrity from actual lawmakers? The magic was real. The doubt was now real too. And they were sharing the same screen. So the standoff just sat there, humming underneath a tournament that stubbornly refused to stop being brilliant. Now, before you sharpen the guillotine, the defense would like a word. Because the case against the conspiracy is not weak. It's the whole reason this is a debate and not a verdict. Start with the most obvious problem. Messi missed the penalty against Egypt. Sit with that for a second. If the fix was in, if referees and VAR and the president of FIFA were all quietly steering the ship toward Argentina, then the simplest gift in football, a penalty for the greatest player alive, got handed over. And he missed it. Twice in the tournament, actually. You do not script a conspiracy and then let your chosen one fluff the easy lines. Go back to 2022 for the same logic. In the final that supposedly had to end with Messi, the referee gave France 2 penalties, and Mbappe scored both. And when the Netherlands equalised in that quarter-final, they did it in the 101st minute, long after any rigged whistle should have ended the game. Wout Weghorst's goal simply should not exist in a fixed universe. It exists. There's a funny double standard buried in all of it too. When Mbappe scores a penalty at a World Cup, he's ice-cold, clutch, an absolute beast. When Messi scores one, when he actually manages it, suddenly the game is corrupt and they wanted him to score. Same act, opposite verdict. Decided entirely by the name on the shirt. Then there's the money argument turned inside out. If FIFA truly had the power to rig matches this easily, why stop at merely helping Argentina survive Egypt? Why not build the dream final? Portugal against Argentina, Ronaldo against Messi. One last duel on the biggest stage on earth in the United States, printing money by the truckload. The fact that FIFA didn't manufacture that box office final is oddly one of the stronger arguments that they simply can't. And the betting point that nobody answers. If people genuinely knew these games were predetermined, why isn't anyone putting their savings on Argentina every single round? Certainty is worth money. Strangely, nobody's collecting. On the officiating itself, the defenders keep pointing at consistency. Hakimi's stamp on Vinicius went uncalled. Other, uglier tackles went unpunished all over the tournament. The referees weren't uniquely soft on opponents of Argentina. They were just imperfect everywhere, in every direction, the way referees always are. Take the Salah incident people kept bringing up. The one they swore was identical to the Lautaro foul. It wasn't. Salah took a heavy touch, showed the defender the ball, and tripped over the Argentine's planted foot as his own momentum carried him forward. The defender didn't slide in. He didn't initiate anything. At grassroots, that's not a foul, and it's not a foul at a World Cup either. Salah's own teammates didn't even argue it in real time, which is usually the surest sign nothing actually happened. And then there's the uncomfortable human part. Egypt were magnificent for 80 minutes and then conceded 3 goals in roughly 10. They lost their heads before they lost the match. Reaching for corruption is a lot easier than admitting a 4-on-1 counter got fumbled and the wheels came off. There's even a pattern to the pattern. Egypt's own coach had previously called the Africa Cup of Nations rigged when his team lost there too. When his side wins, the game is beautiful. When it loses, the game is bent. That tells you something. It just might not tell you what he wants it to. And follow the incentives for a second. For a lot of the accounts pushing this, rigged is not a belief. It's a business model. Post anything with Argentina and corruption in the caption, and it clears 1 million views and 100,000 likes before anyone checks it. That's free engagement, and outrage pays better than nuance ever has. It got so careless that the captions stopped matching the clips. One account raged that Argentina didn't deserve their penalty against a given opponent over footage of a stone-cold textbook penalty. The video literally argued against the tweet sitting on top of it. When the evidence contradicts your own headline and you post it anyway, you are never really chasing the truth. None of this proves innocence. It just flatly refuses to prove guilt. And that gap, That stubborn, maddening gap is exactly where the entire world is currently standing and shouting at each other. So which is it? A 4-year conspiracy finally caught out in the open, or the largest coordinated case of Saw losing the sport has ever produced? Here's the honest answer. This script is not going to tell you, because both stories are built out of the exact same facts. The penalties were mostly legitimate, and there were an unusual number of them. The VAR calls were technically correct, and they kept breaking one way. The politics were real, the money was real, the letter was real, and the missed penalties, the 2 France scored, the equalisers FIFA supposedly forgot to prevent, those are real too. You can lay every piece on the table and build a monster or build a coincidence using the identical set of pieces. That is what makes this the most exhausting argument in the sport right now. What isn't up for debate is where Argentina ended up. Somewhere between that desert final in 2022 and that night in Atlanta, the defending world champions turned into the most hated team on the planet. Not for cheating necessarily, but for winning in a way that let everyone who lost to them reach for the exact same explanation. Respect and disrespect are the real currency here. Argentina kept collecting trophies, and half the football world decided the only possible way that could be happening was theft. Whether that's an indictment of FIFA or an indictment of everyone who can't stomach losing, well, that depends entirely on the seat you're watching from. Maybe the machine is real, maybe the cope is real, maybe, and this is the uncomfortable one, both are real at the same time, and the truth is sitting quietly in the overlap, refusing to pick a side just to make you comfortable. The one thing everyone agrees on is that nobody agrees on anything. A sport that used to argue about goals now argues about governments. Look at everything laid out end to end. The desert final that started it, the group stage that revived it, the Atlanta night that exploded it, the parliament that legitimized it, and the pile of inconvenient facts that refused to let either side win the argument cleanly. Then decide for yourself. Was Argentina robbed of a fair reputation, or did they earn every ounce of the hatred now coming their way? Was the World Cup bent toward Messi, or is this simply the greatest player of all time being punished for the crime of being too good to believe? Drop your verdict in the comments. Guilty or not guilty, and be specific, because down there the vaguest takes lose every argument. And if you want the other half of this story, the one about just how absurdly good an almost 40-year-old Messi has actually been at this tournament, that video is waiting for you right now. Go watch it and make up your own mind.